Welcome to the July 27th meeting of the Village of Pinehurst Historic Preservation Commission. The purpose of the commission is to decide applications for certificates of appropriateness for new construction or major work within the Pinehurst Historic District, and to do so by conducting hearings and making findings of fact when such applications come before us. By law, the commission is directed to take no action except to prevent construction or alterations that would be incongruous with the special character of the historic district. My name is John Taylor. I'm the chair of the commission. I'd like to ask each commissioner, I would note that we do have a quorum. We have 5 people present. Carl and Angelique are excused absences, I guess I would say. So I'd like each member of the commission, starting from my far right, to state his or her name for the record.
David Herring.
Roxanne Vaitkus.
Kara Mathis.
Richard Vincent.
Also present is Maria Carpenter from staff. Our first order of business is to review and approve the minutes of our last meeting. All commissioners have been provided with copies of the draft minutes. Does any commissioner have any changes to suggest? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by David Herring, a second.
Second.
Second by Roxanne Vaitkus. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. May I now have a motion to enter the public hearing?
So moved.
Moved by Kara Mathis, a second.
Second.
Second by David Herring. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are now in a public hearing. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. That means that anyone desiring to testify must be sworn in, and the commission is required to consider only facts presented in this hearing. The proceedings are video recorded. I'll ask the commissioners now if they have visited any of the sites on our docket today and whether they've had any ex parte communications with respect to any of the cases we will be considering. Richard?
Saw the site, no ex parte communication.
I visited both, no ex parte communications.
Visited both. No ex parte communications.
Visited both. No ex parte communication.
Visited both, no communication.
In each case that the commission will hear this afternoon, staff will first present a summary of the application, the staff's evaluation of the extent to which the application complies with the commission's standards for such an application, or raises issues that require further information, the staff's comments on the application, and where appropriate, the staff's recommendation for commission action. The application and its supporting documents, as well as the staff's detailed report, will then be entered into the record. Commissioners will then have an opportunity to question staff about this report and testimony. Next, the applicant or the applicant's representatives will have an opportunity to provide any additional information supporting the application and to address any questions or issues identified in staff's testimony. Commissioners will then have an opportunity to question the applicant witnesses. After the applicant's presentation, if any members of the public wish to come forward to present evidence either in support of or in opposition to the application, I'll ask you to come forward at that time and identify yourself. I'll swear you in and give you an opportunity to present any reasons why you believe that the application should be granted or denied. Please remember that the commission is interested in facts that will help us decide whether the proposed work would be congruous with the special character of the Pinehurst Historic District. As chair, I have the right to exclude testimony that isn't relevant to that subject, but I am not required to do so. Commissioners will then have an opportunity to question you about your testimony. If the applicant or staff wishes to respond to your testimony, I will permit them to do so. We will now proceed to our first case, COA 2023-00244 at 85 Shaw Road Southwest. Maria, would you please present the case?
First.
I think I probably should swear you in first. I think it's an excellent idea. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give to the commission with respect to all the cases on our docket today shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Will you now present the first case, please?
All right. The purpose of this public hearing is to consider a request for a major certificate of appropriateness within the Pinehurst Historic District for adding a front porch and rear patio, enclosing a patio area, adding a driveway, and other modifications at 85 Shaw Road Southwest. The property is identified as Moore County Parcel ID number 000-14388. Property owners are James and Karen Gleason, and the applicant is Frank Cheney. All right. The applicant proposes to add a porch to the front of the house. They're adding a new gravel driveway and additional parking pad to the existing driveway. They are going to paint the brick house white and add shutters, enclose an existing porch in the rear of the house using materials and colors to match the existing, and add a pavilion and hot tub in the rear yard. The structure was built in 1955, and the property is approximately 0.449 acres in size. This is major work because it is new construction or additions not considered minor work, eliminating or adding windows and or doors, and minor work items not approved by the village planner. The public hearing was noticed in accordance with the PDO and North Carolina general statutes. You can see the subject property hashed out here, and the properties outlined in red were the notified properties. So here we have a site plan, and you can see where the new driveway will come and connect to the existing with the proposed additional parking pad here. This area over here is where they'll be enclosing the rear existing porch. They'll add the front porch here, and then they'll be adding a pavilion and spa hot tub in the rear yard. Here are our elevations, so you can see the front porch, along with the shutters that they will be adding. I believe there are some modifications to the windows in the front as well. And here are elevations for the enclosed porch in the rear. Some pictures of the existing house. This is the porch to be enclosed. The front door, here's the front of the house as it exists right now. And the driveway, over here will be the parking pad, and the other driveway will kind of connect over here. Materials and colors to be used, they will be adding some pillars in the front porch. These are the pavers that they'll be using, shutter style, the pavilion, and then we have the trim will be simply white. The brick that they'll be painting the house will be the white heron, and then shutters will be hunter green. So the applicant has submitted an application and provided additional documentation in an attempt to satisfy the burden of proof. Some changes such as the addition of the pergola and the hot tub and driveways could be approved by staff. The commission will need to determine if the changes are congruous with the historic district and meet the historic district standards. And at this time, I would like to submit into the record the staff report with attachments and exhibits, this presentation, and the applicant's application and materials and exhibits.
Without objection, the materials referred to by staff are admitted into the record. Do commissioners have questions for staff?
One small question. The pergola is well outside the setback. Is that something that'll show up when they do their building permit?
Yes, it's already been checked. It's outside the building envelope, but it follows the accessory structure setbacks. That's good.
Any other questions for Maria?
Several items that could have been handled at staff level. We're just addressing them now because it's a complete package and they wanted us to look at everything all at one time.
I usually, if applicants have a lot of things that would be staff approval, instead of having to do minor COAs and a major COA, we put it all on one for you to look
Got
at.
it. Okay.
The ones that would be minor, I've looked at them, and staff could approve those.
Other questions for Maria? Very good. We will now hear from the applicant. Is the applicant here or their representative? Please stand at the microphone for the moment. Raise your right hand, state your name for the record, and spell your last name, and then I will swear you in.
Frank Cheney, C-H-E-N-E-Y, excuse me, E-Y.
And Frank, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give to the commission with respect to this application shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
You may stand or sit as you like. Just be sure that the green microphone is on. And what is your relationship? I don't think you are the owner. Are you?
Oh, I'm the
builder?
architect for the owners.
Very good. And we have,
They're from Indiana.
appropriate authorization. Perfect. Stand or sit as you will. You have been sworn in. If there's anything in the presentation by staff that you disagree with or would like to revise or clarify, or anything at all that you would like to add in support of the application, this is your opportunity to do so.
I might like that if you'll give me a moment. May I use the pointer? And can you go sort of through those slides again? First of all, let me say that I have to give a shout out and thank you to Maria, who walked me through this whole process more than once. And I'm blanking on his name, the engineer from the city that took me through the driveway process and the required setbacks, and I'll think of it in a minute. Does this have the arrow on it?
Right corner.
Well, that'd be a good start. First of all, let me apologize for that because, and I have the original survey of the property, which is reasonably well represented there. I did not have any kind of survey or basically any building information at all when we started this. And so the thing to point out is clearly from, actually, can I digress just for a second?
Can you do it?
Pardon?
What would you like to do?
I would like to digress, just go back.
This is your opportunity to speak, so.
I went back and read the application for the historic nomination for the original neighborhood. And it's beautifully written, I must say. It was really excellent. And one of the things they did, of course, is they went through all the various architectural styles and talked about how not any one individual style, represents the quality of the neighborhood, but the accumulation of all the various styles was what made it so charming and interesting. The one comment at the end of the description of the neighborhood was, there are certain buildings that are non-contributing. And I think it's fair to say that this is singularly maybe the least contributing building in the entire neighborhood. In an effort to be candid, the first thing I told the owners when I came to look at the house was, one, don't buy it. It's just not now, and nor will it ever be a nice house. For their own purposes, they said, no, that's fine. And the irony of that is that they live in a National Historic Landmark house in South Bend, Indiana, and it is a magnificently beautiful house. And this couldn't be further from that house. I've had the pleasure of working on that house, and it's beautiful. So anyway, there are several things that really caught my attention right away. Once we got over the hill, the second thing I recommended was tear it down. But once we got over the barrier of, we're going to remodel this house and move in, the things that were easily identifiable as far as the function of the house was that there's no way to get to the front door. There's simply, you go to the garage and walk around, or you can't get to it from Ritter Road. And it seemed to me that the single most important thing to do was find a way for the owners and the public to graciously get to the front door. And at that point, I think at their urging, we determined that a front porch would be another gracious element to encourage a pleasant entrance into the house. And so that's where the concept of the porch came. It's not ideal because the porch right now, the overhang is about 2 feet, and it's only about 7 feet off the ground. So adding a porch to that had its problems, and I think we've gotten around that a little bit. The other issue, once we were determined that we really had to bring people in off of Ritter Road and circle through the property to get people to the front door, was a very reasonable goal. But secondly, with respect to the garage, you cannot turn around now and go out the driveway head first. You have to back into Shaw Road, and apparently that's been the site of a number of fender benders in the past. And so therefore, the turnaround was something they asked for and seemed like a very reasonable request. You know, when you're dealing with a situation like this, and I've been through more than my share of historic, commission meetings and what's appropriate and not appropriate. When you're faced with a situation like this, how do you decide what's the style? You can't pick a, style. You could say ranch, but it's not even a nice ranch. So where do you go when it comes to finding a vocabulary that will bring some character to this house that would, make it interesting? Whoops, am I doing that? It must be. Sorry, I don't, well, anyway, be that as it may. Oh, that's all right. I don't know if I need the pictures. Thank you. So, you search around for something, and interestingly enough, diagonally across the corner here, there's a magnificent, what I will call colonial revival. You could say it's classical revival, but I think the fact that it's softened so much for a more informal environment, informal purpose, it's just a beautiful representation of colonial revival, in my opinion. We could argue that. And so in some ways, I was trying to take clues from that to bring over to this house as best one could to at least give it a shade of curb appeal. So anyway, I just sort of chose colonial revival as my starting point. Colonial revival, details, columns, fascias, overhangs, that would at least give it some visual interest. And, again, I would say this is never going to be a historically, appropriate house. I hope that we can at least make it a quiet, understated building in the neighborhood. As I've described to the owner, this isn't an architectural project. This is a landscaping project. There's no way of getting around it. The landscaping is what will make or break any kind of visual quality to this house. And we've begun the process, and if anyone wants to recommend a landscape architect in Pinehurst, I think it would be appropriate. I've got several great ones in Greensboro, but it'd be nice to have someone local, not only for the plant materials, but have that sense of the neighborhood, that sort of, informal, blanking on Olmsted's name. Olmsted and his, had this beautiful concept, English, of doing this meandering, relaxed, natural environment. So someone that would have a sensibility to that would be someone names I'd appreciate. I don't know if you have any questions about the porch. One of my favorite books is Virginia Lee McAllister book on American houses. And there's, under neoclassical, there's something very similar to what we're trying to do here. I have put porches like this on similar, maybe more elegant ranch houses in the past, and I have some pictures of that if you want to see them. But anyway, I think, the point is to get the scale of the detailing right, the color scheme, quiet background to landscape. And as you may or not be able to see here, the windows along the front are, it's a real Whitman sampler of different windows. And so, for the history buffs, one of the ways to do that is to screen that with a colonnade, very Renaissance thing to do, so you could hide kind of a variety of things behind it, but the colonnade sort of gave it a unified feeling. So we're hoping that those, and that's one of the reasons I use pairs of columns versus singular columns, is to give it a texture that would kind of become the focal point rather than the wall behind it. Other than that, I don't have much to justify. The porch on the side is really, it's got a 7-foot ceiling. It's really not very nice, to say the least. By enclosing it, one is you can give an existing small bedroom much more space. And secondly, you can raise the ceiling from 7 feet up to, well, 8 or 9, depending if you follow the roof line of the new roof that's going to go on there. And then there's a way of connecting that bedroom to an existing bathroom through one of the side walls, which we'll probably do as well. And so if you have any questions, that's about all I have to say. I hope that's not too much.
Thank you. Questions from commissioners for the applicant? I had a couple, just for clarification. First of all, the upper sashes are being replaced in all the windows.
Not the ones that are already a single pane. The back of the house, they're all, they're double hungs, but they don't have grids in the upper portion. The grids are primarily along the front of the house.
But you're replacing all of those on the front of the house?
Yes, yes, we are.
And it says here on the application, remove existing brick, prepare for required sheathing and insulation.
Yeah, on one of the larger windows on the front of the house, we're going to cut the brick down to just below the floor level, put in a wood panel, and have larger shutters, just for emphasis, I guess.
That's just the one, I think it's indicated on the left as you look at it from the street.
Yes, I think there's one other one on the
Two of them.
side.
Right next to the door.
But,
Not right next to the door, a little bit further over.
but the other windows are so small, they're, above counter height, and
And I don't think we have any specific standard, but you're adding a railing on top of the front porch.
yeah.
It's similar in concept to the railing that's on the back porch, which is being removed because you're enclosing that.
Well, no, it won't be similar to that, but, yeah, that's a difficult problem. One is, it adds a kind of layer of detail that will, again, make the porch more of a focal point, but at the same time, it's totally useless, railing. Now,
It's ornamental, it's not structural.
yeah, it's just ornamental. Now, I'll justify that by saying, again, in the Virginia and Lee McAllister book on page 553, they show several examples of decorative railings on top of porches that, in the neoclassical section. If you said to me, and look, let's get rid of the railing, it wouldn't hurt my feelings, but I think it adds a layer of detail that probably will add a little charm to the porch.
And that whole front facade there where there's currently a gutter that runs all the way along there and out the side, is that going to come around the porch or is it going to be removed or?
Well, all of the gutters are going to be replaced. All those copper gutters will all go.
Which I don't think are really copper,
Not
but
copper,
we're
no.
supposed to believe they are. Copper color, yes, so appropriate of our workshop discussion.
If you can find one that resembles aged copper, let me know, but I don't know of any that exist.
You don't want to know about our earlier conversation on that topic. We're going to leave you out of that, but
And that railing is black, not white.
Probably. I mean, again, you wouldn't hurt my feelings if you said paint it white, but I don't, it just doesn't seem.
Is
necessary.
that railing metal?
Yes,
Okay. And is that eyebrow window or?
That's
that-
existing.
Is that a faux eyebrow window?
real.
Oh, it's real, okay.
Real.
That's staying.
Yes, it is. There are two of them.
Okay.
One's on the wing that comes towards the front on the side, and the other
Oh,
one
I
right
can't-
there over
okay.
the front door.
Okay.
Maria, could
I was just looking at
Could you put up Exhibit A 2.12, please? The picture of what I believe is going to be the pavilion?
Yeah,
It's, I think, the last of the
There it
photographs.
is, right there.
So this appears to have like a fireplace in it and a bunch of things which I don't think you intend to have. You just are thinking it's going to be the four posts and the
Oh, no, we
roof?
don't have a fireplace.
They are going to have a fireplace in there. So it is going to be pretty much exactly like this.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's going to sound
That's good
pretentious,
news.
but I'll kind of modify it so it's a little more authentic. You know, those brackets on there, they're not doing much.
Do we have an issue approving that off a picture that's going to be kind of what we're doing, but not exactly?
I thought that was a staff approval.
And
That- is that-
obviously,
The construction of the pavilion is a minor work / staff approval? I,
It's in front of us now for our approval, but I think your point was if that was individually brought in front, it could be handled at a staff level. So
that's,
just
cer- well, that certainly will provide drawings of that so you can see specifically what that's like.
if it's a staff approval, you can provide those to Maria and she will take them in. Any other questions for the applicant?
out of curiosity, there's a house, I may have got the address wrong, but on Everett Road in Kelly, there's a very similar house with the railing above the front porch. I don't know if it's original or not, but I don't know if you've seen that.
No, I haven't.
Okay. I'd suggest you go look at it, not for this application, but it's exactly what you're doing here, and those details go a long way. I think it's 150 Everett.
Yeah, if you find the Presbyterian church, it's catty corner, right? I think it's just
Yep.
right across the street.
Yeah, I think it's 150 Everett.
It's a pavilion?
Not the, no, not the pavilion, but the front porch where you have sort of the decorative railing
Right.
that doesn't serve a purpose other than just architectural feature.
I mean,
They've done a
here's-
good job.
This is,
Theirs is white, I think.
I think this might be worth looking at. This is the house that was in Greensboro. Railing.
Anything else for the applicant? Thank you very much.
Okay. What happens from here?
You go back and take your seat,
Oh, I mean,
and I ask if there's anyone from the public who
oh, I
wants
see,
to,
okay.
to come say anything.
Can I get a drink?
And then you can watch the magic happen right here.
Okay.
As I said earlier, if there is any member of the public who wishes to present any evidence, either in support of or opposition to the application, please come forward at this time. I see none. I would say if there are no further questions from commissioners, the record in this case is closed. The document that was handed in is not part of the record. It was not part of the formal application process. Do commissioners have any discussion amongst ourselves?
I do.
David?
The applicant, in his own language, said a lot of things about that house that I would not say to someone else's house, although since he said it, I absolutely agree. Unfortunately for me, there are three sections in the existing residences standards, which I think ought to be particularly important. And they are, they're under roofs, it says the existing roof shall be compatible with the architectural style of the existing structure. And under doors and under exterior walls and trim similarly, must be compatible with the architecture of the existing structure. And further on, under porches, again, same thing, must be compatible with the architectural character of the existing structure. The applicant, in his own words, struggled with what the existing structure character is. In my mind, it's closest to what the applicant suggested is a ranch. May not be a great ranch, but it's definitely a ranch. Fairly simple details of low cost in general. Not that that's bad, but the details are in accordance with that idea. The eaves are very simple and clean. The windows could use a lot of help, but in general, they're of their era for an inexpensive ranch house. The front porch, on the other hand, the neoclassical, borrowing the idea of a neoclassical porch from across the street doesn't cut it for me. It is not compatible with the ranch style. And for that reason, the front porch and the railing above the front porch, to my mind, are not congruous.
You raised 3 issues. Those are all bundled into one?
Right.
Into one objection, okay? Other questions,
I had a
discussion?
question about the railing, well, amongst, I want to understand if this gets approved. I can see the drawing of the railing. We don't know if it's black or white, but we know it's metal. Is the design, am I approving this design with the X's and the verticals? If that gets changed, will this come back in front of us? Because this is such a focal point to this house if this railing is placed on here. There's not a lot of detail about the railing in the application, so it would come back before us.
I would have, I would submit that that was actually an excellent question for the applicant, because I can't answer it.
Oh, no, I'm just asking procedurally. I'm not asking,
But it's both. It's both procedural, which I agree with.
Okay,
And the
okay.
specific question is the railing that is in the, have you specified a specific railing that you intend to put on the structure?
but the design isn't specified. Okay, so this is the design you plan to do.
Bill, we got to get you in the mic.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you have to, this is being recorded, so
Have we closed this? Do we have to reopen it?
we don't have to reopen it if we don't admit any new information. At the moment, I would say we're merely clarifying what we've admitted into the record.
Okay, well, no, because you passed this around about the Chippendale, and I was thinking, well, maybe you weren't sure what you were going to do.
No, it was a different situation.
Okay,
Again, that's a historic neighborhood as well.
Sure.
That had Chippendale railings and then, near, so it just seemed like a piece to try and, it's pretty subtle, but, and I would say, can I comment on the ranch? I mean, I think, no question, it's classified as a ranch. But even as ranches go, this house doesn't have even the modicum of detail that's typically represented on a ranch. A ranch will have at least a fascia that has molding and maybe even a secondary, horizontal line, an OG gutter, and, a simple, classical profile. And this porch has a 2-foot overhang, which has no profile. It has a aluminum clad trim, aluminum soffit at 7 feet. So there's nothing, even in this case, where I would call that any kind of genuine ranch. It's just somebody's idea of how do I get a new roof on there, and the overhang doesn't provide shelter for anything. And so I wouldn't even classify it as a genuine ranch, personally. It's sort of a homemade carpenter's ranch.
Well, and as a practical matter, there are a number of houses that were built in the historic district prior to the existing of historic preservation standards. So that's why you find that house situated where it is,
Yeah.
because there was no one like us who could have said no to it at the time it was built.
I mean, I think the porch that you might be referring to, the ranch, if you look at it, it has proportion. It has a base, it has a body, and it has a reasonably articulated horizontal fascia and trim and gutter, et cetera. This does not even have a base. The grade goes right up to the first floor on the front. It drops down in the back because of the slope. And so there's really, I mean, it's sadly not even a decent ranch. I mean, and, I don't want to criticize it too hard, but it's, well, that explains why I said tear it down.
David, without foreshadowing whether this COA will be approved or not when it comes to a vote, would there be suggestions you would make that would make you more comfortable?
Well, I agree with everything you've said about the existing structure. I'll start there. Nonetheless, my approach would have been different, and my approach isn't what's important. This is your design. My duty is to see if it meets the standards and is congruous. And I think I made my point.
There are not specific suggestions you would choose to make at this time, which is fine.
Uh, Since I've been asked,
Yeah,
I would
please.
suggest this less than stellar ranch. The goal would be to make it a stellar ranch, as opposed to a not great anything with a neoclassical front porch, even a really nice one. Like lipstick on a pig, if you will.
If we could take the time for just a little debate, let's take the New England four-square house with the big rooms in each corner and central hall, et cetera. If you look at that, it's just a big box. It's not articulated in any way, with the exception of maybe shutters, maybe some trim around the windows, maybe a different kind of roof. But what makes it the classic house is a great front porch. I mean, without it, it's just a plain box that's not particularly interesting architecturally. But if you put a beautiful porch on it,
Yeah. And
it's
I think,
spectacular.
I think your articulated reasons for what you're doing and how you're doing it, the reasons for the double columns, the reasons for the porch in general, which you reiterated, I agree with all of those. I just don't think it fits on that house. I think a new front porch would be great on that house, but not that one. So, but
No,
not my house.
fair enough, fair enough.
Are we in this discussion?
We are
part of
still
it?
in staff, commission discussion, yes.
Okay. Okay, so first of all, I've seen examples, and this is probably predates the HPC, of a very clear Dutch colonial that has had a Greek revival slapped onto the front of it. And you can tell that those are two very distinct styles of homes, and they do not mesh together. I live very close to this house, and I agree, I don't know what kind of house it is. And I don't think that putting a neoclassical front on it would make somebody driving by say, that's very clearly a ranch that has had a neoclassical facade put on it, as strongly as I feel about other homes that I've seen in this area. So that's my take. I don't think that it is clearly a ranch to the extent that it would send somebody's brain into a frenzy looking at it.
You think of the
Concur,
house,
but not a lot that we can do about
Right,
that to the
yes.
extent it is what it is.
can't you look at the house at this point, especially if it's all painted white, as the background to some beautiful landscaping and at least a nice porch? And that, there's not anything articulated on the ranch itself of any visual interest, so why not put the visual interest at the front door as a contrast to this very plain, linear back?
And David, is the railing the thing that's kind of,
It's just part of the same argument. I think the railing in the example that you've provided us it works well with that design. Sadly, this house isn't that house.
Well, it was a pretty ordinary ranch when it started.
So I think a neoclassical porch with a railing on top can be really great, but it does, to me, and again, I don't want to offer up any solution, not my job. But to me, the requirement that it be compatible with the architectural style of the existing house, reiterated at least 3 times in our standards, to me, it doesn't do that.
No, I'm merely saying that we do have, not a requirement, but a suggestion that if we think denial is likely, that we offer the applicant the chance to defer in lieu of a vote. And we're not there yet. No one has made a motion, and the motion might carry without your vote. So.
Well, I guess a couple other things that I wasn't going to address, but there was a question about, is the railing the design you truly intend, or is it just a rough idea? A similar question came up about the structure in the backyard. Does it have those brackets, or are you going to do a better brackets? You suggested that. So if it were continued, it would give the applicant an opportunity to come back with what he really wants, so he doesn't have to come back and change it. Save you
So
some
Richard,
fees.
any subsequent questioning and/or other comments?
Yeah, well, number one, the railing in front of us on these elevations or renderings is what we're approving. So,
Yes.
so if it changes, he's coming back.
Right.
That's trivial from my side. I think you're doing a fabulous job here. I think we have to look at the upgrades and the renovations as they relate to the current property, and if they're compatible, but also the district as a whole. And I think the style that you proposed is congruent with the district as a whole. I just mentioned one house, which is almost a doppelganger of this house on Everett Road. So I don't see it not being compatible within the district. I do see where your point is, David. But if the house doesn't really have a definitive style, they're trying to create a style for it. So there's nothing that could be done to this property to make it compatible with the existing structure because it doesn't have a style. So I look at this, yes, it's a ranch, but it's almost a ranch with someone who had European tastes. You got copper, you got this beigey color, you got diamond pattern windows. Those are almost sort of European Tudor elements on a ranch. It just does, and then you've got mid-century modern windows fronting the front door on the left and the right side, which doesn't fit in with any of that. So I think what you've done here is try to bring in elements outside of from other homes within the village, lighten the place up with the color, which would be in line with what you're trying to do as far as design. Cut the landscaping back. You're going to open the house up, brighten the whole thing up, bring in shutters, bring in sort of an upgraded front porch. Everyone loves a front porch. And bring in that architectural railing that we see elsewhere in the village. So I think you're picking up these themes, at least for me, where this is compatible within the district as a whole. And then the other point I'd make is, this is one of the beautiful things about what we get to deal with. My house, no one lived in it for 7 years. You couldn't see it. When we redid it, there was no style for that house. And I can count tens of examples where tiny cottages that have been run down, where someone's come with a vision and completely changed what it looked like. I remember Mark Parson, his house on Everett Road. That was an 800 square foot nondescript cottage and you look at it now and it's a showpiece. Yeah. So I don't want us to, we got to be careful not to overcomplicate things and confuse it and nitpick when overall, I think these are fabulous improvements to a very mundane, boring house. And it may not be our preference, it may not be exactly what we like, but it's a hard stretch to say this is what these proposed changes are not congruent within the district as a whole.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents.
Well, but before moving, let me just advise you that in order to approve a COA, we normally have 7 members of the commission, 2 are not here today. You need 4 positive votes to be granted a COA. Is there anything you have heard in the questioning that would cause you to want to go back and consult with the owners about any possible changes, whether subject to David's comments or anything else, maybe just your own things that you might want to ask them to consider? Or I can ask for a motion, see if we have a motion to approve the COA or we don't.
Let me also let you know, as you may or may not, if you get turned down, you come back, you pay another fee.
Sure.
If we
Fee's not
continue
the
it,
issue.
then you have a chance to try again without paying another fee.
Well, I'm satisfied.
Have one vote, so.
I mean, personally, I'm satisfied with the intent that I'm proposing. I realize I'm asking for good faith that we will execute this with the same kind of, care and consideration that, the village deserves.
And you understand that we are, if approved, we are approving this railing as it is
Yes,
drawn in
sure.
black wrought iron. Okay?
Sure.
Do I have a motion with respect to this application?
Okay. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness, COA 2023-00244, and find the proposed major work at 85 Shaw Road Southwest, oh boy, is, okay, hold on. Well, it's not consistent though, technically, right?
I think that's,
Okay.
I think that's the correct word.
Is not consistent with historic district standards, but is deemed congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the materials submitted, and the findings of fact.
We have a motion made by Kara Mathis. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Roxanne Vitkus. Let's vote individually, starting with David.
No.
Yay.
Yes.
Yes?
Yay.
Congratulations, you have your COA.
Promise you it'll be
Well
okay.
done, by the way.
Pardon?
Tempted. I would salvage that house.
I only wish it had been an authentic, ranch house, but that's not what we had to work with.
If all the applications were clear, they wouldn't need us. So, but we do bring a range of both perspectives and experience, and we like to think that we are enforcing standards.
I think
So-
what you do is important. I mean, it's sad that in this day and age, we can't rely on people to do, things right, but I think it will be. I promise. And if anyone has a landscape architect, would you mind referring it to Maria, and I'll talk to Maria, because it is a landscaping project. It's not a,
After this meeting, go look at 150 Everett and 190 Everett,
150.
and you can go knock on the door of 190. He'll take you back and show you everything.
He's incredible.
Very good. Our second case, COA 2023-00246.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your effort.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maria, would you please introduce the case?
The purpose of this public hearing is to consider a request for a major certificate of appropriateness within the Pinehurst Historic District for changes to previously approved COA 2022-00039 at 15 Fields Road. The property is identified as Moore County Parcel ID number 000299479, and the property owners are Joseph and Amy Everson, and the applicant is James Secchi. Changes to the previously approved COA include the addition of windows on the east elevation, the elimination of windows on the west elevation, a change to the roof line on the east elevation, as well as changing some of the siding materials. This is a new house built in 2022, and the property is approximately 0.45 acres in size. It is major work because it is eliminating or adding windows and/or doors and changes to roof lines. The public hearing was noticed in accordance with the PDO and North Carolina general statutes. The subject property is in the hashed out area, and the properties outlined in red were the notified properties. So here we can see, although the applicant has noted a lot of minor changes that he made, the ones that we require major COAs are the additions of some windows. So we have the addition of this window above the garage, eliminating some windows. You had 3 windows here, there are now 1, and he changed the roof line here. On the west elevation, there was originally a window here, and that has been eliminated. They did change the siding here, that was just the board, and now they have the brick going up to the chimney. I think that was all there. Oh, up here, we had the elimination of 1 more window. The applicant has submitted an application and provided additional documentation in an attempt to satisfy the burden of proof. The commission will need to determine if the changes to the previously approved elevations, such as the addition and elimination of windows and the change in roof line on the east elevation, are congruous with the historic district and meet the historic district standards. At this time, I'd like to submit into the record the staff report with attachments and exhibits, this presentation, the application, and the applicant's materials and exhibits.
Thank you. Normally, at this point, without objection, we admit all of the materials to the record. I'm going to exercise the discretion of the chair to exclude from that exhibits 2.1, 2.5, and 2.6. This is primarily the letter that the representative for the applicant wrote. We are charged statutorily with considering only facts. While there are some facts in there, there's a great deal of opinion, and that's why I'm excluding that. It does not exclude those provisions where he specifically cites the things that have changed from what was originally approved, which are, I think, factual in nature. So with that as an exception, all other materials are referred to by staff are admitted into the record. Do commissioners have any questions for Maria? Hearing none, are there representatives from the applicant here?
Howdy, I'm Jim Secchi, S-E-C-K-Y. I'm the
Great, Jim.
designer and owner representative and general contractor.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give to the commission with respect to this application shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You may stand or sit as you wish, but do please speak into the microphone. So you have been sworn in. If there's anything in the presentation by staff that you disagree with or would like to revise or clarify, or anything that you would like to add in support of the application, this is your opportunity to do so.
I'm good.
Questions from the commissioners for the applicant? I had only two minor ones. There's one of the windows that you've added that is 2/2, where all the other windows are 2/1, and I just wonder why.
Well, typically, when I handle an elevation on a house, I try to treat those sections of the house as individual elements, if you will. And in my opinion, when you make a difference or change in the window, you make that stand out more than you would by being similar to something next to it. So I try to treat those things separately.
But in all the other cases, you deemed 2/1 to be what you thought was best, and then there's one only, which was, I think, one of the windows that was added.
Absolutely true. It's like, if you went out to the Biltmore Hotel, there's 7,000 different windows on that one. So the way I look at it, like I stated, it's, I try to treat every architectural element or facet of the house individually, no matter where it is, inside or outside.
And there are
And
several,
with respect, it's done by feel too.
it's a question, that's all it is.
That's fine.
I noticed it, so I asked. In parts of the east and north elevations, you have added sort of a batten
Yes.
to
yes,
match the height of the brick,
yes,
but you did
yes.
not carry that around
That's
all the way.
correct.
I'm just curious why.
Well, when I made the decision to put the brick at a certain elevation, brick oftentimes draws more attention to the horizontal aspects of the house. So in order to settle the building down and to follow the horizontal element, I used battens as opposed to brick. So I wanted your eye, you may not see it, but if you look at the house, your eye travels and follows that line.
No, my question was why you didn't carry that. I understood why you did it.
Well,
where you did it.
it becomes the same, it becomes the same answer to the first question is, when I look at those things, I try to decide if you add more of the same thing, you detract from the good part of it. So why add more if it already looks good?
I have nothing further. No other questions from anyone else?
No, I have some questions. Thanks for appearing today. I'm newer on the commission, and I'm just trying to get an understanding how we got here today. And the reason I ask is because it looks like maybe there's 45 some changes that were made. And of those 45, maybe, this was after your COA was approved. And of those 45, it looks like maybe there's about 17 of them that are major, meaning normally a builder or architect would come before us and say, I had plans to do this and I changed it, and it's a major change. And therefore, I asked the commission to take the time and tell me that that's approved. And it looks like in this case, that didn't happen.
That's correct.
And so you're here today, and that's why we're here. So I'm trying to understand that. And because I really believe communication is really important, I'm trying to understand what happened, because as a commission, I mean, we can't, it's hard for us to vote when you've already done the work. And we're used to saying or looking at projects to work with you to make the project go positively. In this particular case, I'm not saying the work isn't congruous. I'm just saying I'm trying to understand what happened to the communication. So my question for you is really, at any time, did you think about contacting the village planning department to basically say, hey, I'm going to be doing some major modifications to the approved COA? What is the process, or what should I do?
No, you're 100% correct, and it's my fault, and I apologize for it. During the course of the jobs, the way I typically work on things is I make modifications and changes as I go because I think they're needed. And when you're framing a building, in my mind, it makes less sense to, why stop? And I guess in a way, it's arrogance on my part, because I think I can pull it off better than what I had originally planned, so I just do it.
Well, I understand that, but, you know, we have a process, and we actually set forth in our standards that process, that if you have to make a major change, here's what you should do. And we even put the phone number of the planning department in our standards so that you know exactly, here's the phone number to call. So when I read this originally, I thought, well, maybe you did try to contact the village, and no one got
No,
back
it is,
to you.
no, you guys have been absolutely 100%. I've done about 5 projects in the historical district. Everything has gone very smoothly in the past.
Did you get approval on those, or is it the same thing? You came back to the
I don't even,
commission?
frankly, I don't remember, because frankly, the way I work and the way I do things, I make judgments in the field as I go, because I treat my projects like art. I don't treat them as a structure. You can't structure art.
I understand that. Trust me, I come from a family of artists, okay? So, but where I'm struggling with it as a commissioner, because I take an oath to sit on this commission, I have an issue because I have other builders, architects. I have people from architects representing the resort in town who, when they have a major change, they come before us. They take the time, they may have a delay, but they come before us. So they follow the process, and they pay the fee to do that. And you come before us, and all of a sudden, it's like, I have to treat you differently than everybody else. And I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that. I don't like being put in that position, put it that way.
I
So all I would
apologize.
ask is in the future, that if you do another project, that you look at it from that standpoint and have some respect for the other, not just the planning department, but the people who sit on this commission. who have
If I
to
could, Roxanne, I would echo that sentiment and add one thing, that although it was excluded as part of the evidentiary record, you made a statement in here that you had to get this done because it's important to get the roof on and the windows in. I mean, yes and no. When you're first just putting up the stud walls, if it rains, and there's no roof, and you can't put the roof on first, you have to get other stuff done before you put the roof on. So I'm not hugely persuaded that a delay then would have made a great deal of difference in what was a 14 or 15-month project. And by the way, the finished product is a lovely house. And some of there were 44 that I counted. There was some duplication. Maybe there are 35 individual ones. And of those, there were some that are a lot more significant than others. It's hard to argue with the finished product.
Well, I apologize. I'm fairly arrogant about it, sir, and I think I'm pretty good at what I do. And if you walk up to that building and it looks like it belongs here, then I did my job. I apologize. I did not follow protocol. I've done 5 projects in the historic district, and I was hell-bent on getting this done as properly and as quickly as I possibly could because it was in a very high-profile location. But let me put it this way, I won't do it again.
Well, and I think the issue too is that like we're very lucky that you are good at your job and kept it congruous,
You.
but if we let this happen to someone who did not have your skill set, then we could end up with a village of,
No, there may be something to that where more involvement on the part of the staff on the design side of things, with all due respect to the gentleman who was just here, in my opinion, if I may say so, his presentation could have been a lot more thorough than it was, and you may have got the answers that you wanted. So you're looking at a set of diagrams which aren't complete. You gave him permission to do it, and you really don't know what's going to happen. In my case is, I knew what was going to happen without asking permission, I'm sorry to say, but
Except, as you point out in your words, a plan is only a plan, meaning you reserve the right for you to amend
I
it
get it, you're talking.
without coming to us,
you're-
and therefore, we don't really know what we
You're
approve.
talking to an artist, and you know what, I'll volunteer my services to the city of Pinehurst to get involved with every damn thing that you do to make sure the art is right.
We all, as commissioners, do read the submissions, and we have to go based on what is in them. So, in any event, Roxanne, further questions?
No.
Kara, David, Richard? Thank you very much. Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to be heard either in support of or in opposition to the application?
Bruce Duncan, D-U-N-C-A-N. I live at 10 Fields Road across.
I'm sorry?
Bruce Duncan, D-U-N-C-A-N. I live at 10 Fields Road across the street from.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give to the commission with respect to this application shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Stand or sit as you wish.
Stand, this will not take long.
What would you like to say?
I appreciate the points brought up by the commission, because I know we rebuilt or remodeled our house about 8 years ago at 10 Fields across, and we had changes, and we came back before the commission before we made those changes. So I do appreciate that. However, for all the changes that he made, the house is exquisite. You know, it is a gorgeous house as you are coming in off Midland Road, and that's the first thing you see making the turn into the village. The detail of matching the front porch with the historic fence that's there is unreal. I mean, I remember Miss Tuff's house. If that one could not be remodeled, because I'm real big on keeping with the character in the village as well, then I do think that this is a great replacement. The windows in question, at least on the east side of the house, I look at them every morning when I get up, when we go out to do our walk, and I assure you, he may not have done the true process, but I am not offended by anything that was done living across the street. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the,
I just wanted to reiterate that, again, we are very lucky that this is the outcome.
And I agree with you.
And so that's not even, we are not arguing that it's beautiful. It is beautiful, but it could have just as easily been not beautiful if it was anybody else. And so we just want to make sure that we clarify for everybody in this room and watching that we have a process in place to prevent the alternative from happening.
And I assure you that if it came out and it was not beautiful, I would not be having the same discussion that I'm having.
I live a few doors away. I think it's a great final product, but we have to pursue the process.
I understand. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wish to be heard? Thank you very much, Bruce. Hearing none, if I get back to my script properly. The record in this case is now closed, up to commissioners to deliberate.
Ready to make a motion?
David, go ahead.
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness and find the proposed major work at
15 Fields Road.
15 Fields Road is consistent with Historic District standards and is deemed congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the material submitted, and the findings of fact.
We have a motion by David Herring. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Kara Mathis. All in favor will vote individually. David?
Aye.
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 Congratulations. Thank you for your apology, and thank you for the nice work that you did, and you have your COA. I think, at least for this month, that is the last. That concludes the public hearing. May I have a motion to close the public hearing and return to the regular commission meeting?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second
Moved
it.
by Richard Vincent, second by Kara Mathis. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are now we have now closed the public meeting and are back in our regular commission hearing. You have all been provided with copies of the minor work staff approvals. I think there may be a couple of other pieces of business. Kara, do you want to?
So today, my friend informed me that Annie Oakley's original cabin is in Pine Wild. Not Thistle Cottage, so not where she lived, but the cabin that she built to give lessons. And she had like a gun range. And yes, the quizzical faces are exactly, that was the reaction I had.
Is this a log house?
It is the log house.
Down?
Yes. So she took me out there to see it. There is black mold in it, so I can see why they are demolishing it, but I brought Leslie Bryans from Pines Preservation Guild out to look at the structure, and she said it's completely salvageable, that it would be more than possible for someone to move it to a different location if that's the issue, is that they want that land, at least the original cabin structure. So she and my friend who live in Pine Wild are currently talking or reaching out to, I guess, the owners to see if they would be amenable to this, because it seems like, I guess it's going to be demolished fairly soon. But I just wanted to put it on your radar, because even though it is outside the historic district and we don't have official say over it, we might be able to get involved in at least bringing awareness to it. And it is a gorgeous, gorgeous cabin. And at the very least, the Annie Oakley Society, someone would be lucky to have it, to use it as a museum or a house.
Is there anyone, Maria, who comes to your mind who might, again, we have no jurisdiction here, we can't prevent it, deny it, or delay it, but is there anyone who might want to get involved who might forestall that?
Mm-hmm. Sorry, that was very audible, yes. I mean, but that wasn't,
A private matter, I guess.
well, it might be private, except that we were even considering, and I know this is a touchy subject, but if you moved it to the harness track where she did her exhibitions and just had it on site there as, you know, a small museum or just a tribute to Annie Oakley's history here, which I'd say 50% of people that I talked to knew that Annie had any history here, and it is a pretty in-depth one. So yes.
If you're thinking about moving it to the harness track, my suggestion would be to contact someone in the village, because I know they were just submitted a proposal to develop that track. And so, you know, the village owns that property. So maybe
Yes.
that's the connection to make, if that's what you're thinking.
Yes.
Could we hear from the audience?
No, I don't know that we will recognize anyone from the audience, but if only there were a member of the village council in attendance, perhaps they might choose to take it up.
That would be great.
Yes.
Have you talked to anyone at Pinewell?
This was 2 hours ago that we went and saw it. So I talked to the resident at in Pine Wild who told me about it, said that she was going to stop by. The owner, I guess, keeps an office. He used to keep his office in there.
He lives in the house next door.
Well, and he has clearly not set foot, if he's still alive today, has not set foot in that house for a while because it's
So I'm-
destroyed.
I'm not
But
a name dropper, but my uncle's been a club manager for 30 years. Isn't
wait, yeah, that was one of the names. Great.
that person tell him what you
No, you call Chris. Uncle Chris.
We have the details.
Sato is the owner.
Yes.
He spends a lot of time abroad. I heard that they were taking it down.
Yes.
And it was, hey, do you want to turn some of this wood into furniture, and I like making furniture.
Well,
So
and it's,
That's
and
what I heard about it. Look, I think you should just call him and just tell him what you want, and then you should talk to Pat and the rest of the council and see if there's a shared plan, but
Yeah.
it's really a
The-
private matter for you to negotiate.
But there are only two members of the council who live in Pine Wild who might want to intervene in some way also, or might not, but.
It's private property.
right. And they are going to reach out to Chris, that was one of the names, and if he was amenable to it, to just letting us raise funds, or let PPG raise funds, like they did with Miss Bell's, RIP, that didn't work.
Sadly, but. yeah.
Yes.
Got something good to run on here. I'll
Mm-hmm.
give you his contact if you want, we can call them afterwards.
Yeah, that would be great, yeah. Because once you lose that history, it's beautiful. It is beautiful. She's amazing. She was fired up. Yes.
Are you speaking into the microphone just out of
Oh,
curiosity?
yeah, we're talking about Leslie. She came out and saw it. I brought her out to see it because she got fired up enough to, yes.
Do you want to mention your other topic or no? Letter to, or guideline for realty?
Oh, yeah, if I can. Okay, so as you probably know, anyone who swore me in, I have a personal connection to the ask forgiveness, not permission mantra that seems to circulate around Pinehurst in terms of small projects especially, usually not major work, but minor work. And it's something that I've struggled with because I hear different things from different people. And when I first moved here, it was hard for me to find the information that I wanted, having a historic house in the village. So I feel very strongly about making that information accessible to everyone. When the second they buy a house in the historic district, I want them to know, if you want to do anything, we're here to help you. And this is how, this is exactly who you contact. This is what you need to do X, Y, and Z. So I very briefly drafted the initial beginning of a letter that we might be able to give to realtors to include in their welcome packet when somebody buys a house in the historic district. We will obviously run into issues because many people are resistant to working with us, but I think if they have the information physically in their hands, they at least can't plead ignorance the way that I think.
Kara shared it with me, and while there certainly is some wordsmithing to do on the letter itself, I don't think it's a bad idea for the council, for the commission rather, to be on record. I think there will be pushback for various reasons from the realtor community. I don't want to say that I don't care about that. I'm not trying to, be difficult, but I don't think it's a bad idea for us possibly to be on record. And so that hopefully if everyone are people of good faith, you buy a piece of property in the historic district with eyes open. But we will come, certainly you'll be able to have a chance to take a look at the language long before it goes anywhere.
It's not good right now because I wrote it, but there are Oxford commas, so.
There is a similar process in Virginia, in Reston, which is a planned community. And I'm definitely not a lawyer, I can't even spell lawyer. But there, when you buy a property in Reston, this planned community with a commission like ours, part of the closing process is that you are handed the standards.
Yeah.
Which is I guess it's a deed restriction in Virginia. I don't know how it would work down here, but.
I can answer it. Because I originally thought I had this great idea. I heard you were going to draft a letter, and I thought this is fantastic because we need to communicate, right? And I'm big into communication. And I thought, well, gee, I used to live in a planned unit development, and I knew what my HOA rules were because guess what? When I closed on my property, there they were for me to look at as part of my closing. And I thought, well, we should be able to put these as, where you buy a house, it's with your deed. But this is a zoning overlay, and that's not originally, you know, you'd have to develop a piece of property and declare declarations at the time of development, and then that can go against the deed. So in this case, the facts are different. But I started thinking about the realtors may be a little reticent to, you know, help us out here because it doesn't, they don't have a vested interest, really. The person who has the vested interest, I think, is the Village of Pinehurst. Because as people understand they're part of a historic district, they're really a steward of their property. And that's something to honor. And I think a letter could go out from the village for every new homeowner, you know, letting them know that they are a steward of this property and it's a fantastic thing. It can be a positive marketing letter. And that would give them the communication that, yes, we have standards and, you know, please contact us when you're starting to do a renovation to the exterior of your home. I think that's the vested
Yeah.
person. I don't think it's the realtor. And I don't think all realtors, they say, yeah, we'll give it to them, but guess what? Will they really?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that-
I've had limited conversation with a couple of realtors who, they don't want to bring it up before the sale because they're afraid they may queer it. And
Sure.
if they don't bring it up before the sale and then they hand it to them, afterwards, well, why didn't you tell me about it? I don't want to.
Absolutely, yeah.
That is not a reason for someone not to be on record in this matter.
But Kara, it's a great idea.
No.
There's no obligation, it's just,
Right.
would you want to pass this along? And they could say,
Right.
sure, yeah, I'll pass it along, and it never makes it there.
And who do those standards benefit? They benefit the Village of Pinehurst.
But in reality, the people who come before us, the majority are not new home buyers. The majority are people who live in the village who want to improve their house. So if you're talking about this, if there's 600 homes in the village, then just send out 600 letters annually to those people on a recurring basis. It wouldn't be very expensive. And remind them, these are the
That's not a bad
standards.
idea, yeah.
Most of the cases, we get are remodels.
Yeah.
Just because we had a new build tonight, but I mean, 90% of what we deal with is a patio expansion, a closing of a porch, a driveway, a garage addition, you know? So it's the people who've lived here for 10 years who don't know. And you could do it through an e-letter, doesn't have to be something that too much thought goes into it.
That's a good
I will-
idea.
I will be happy to give you my thoughts and you can massage further from there and we will take it up at a future time.
Bill's idea. So
Yeah,
it's like-
I'll
I
write
think
it.
it's a great idea, Kara.
David, you're off the hook for this one.
The section that we did not get to earlier in our work session on trees, brief background, I think at least Roxanne and I, possibly others, had some issues with the approval at 20 Mustard Branch Road. And the way our existing regulations work, consideration of the impact of removal of trees not in the right-of-way, and impact on the overall canopy only applies on the street-facing side. Therefore, as I read the regulations now, in theory, if the only thing I want to do is remove trees on the back of my house, I can literally clear-cut the lot. And we don't get a chance to weigh in on the impact of that on the canopy. And then 6 months later, or 2 months later, I come back and say, gee, I'd like to put a swimming pool in, or, you know, whatever it is. You can bifurcate the application process. I'm considering it to be a loophole. My attempt was to address that. I was less hung up on the idea, and so starting with the existing language, which basically says that if it's 12 inches or greater and you think it's diseased or dead, you can do it, and the village planner might request something from you, but they can't say no. So my question was, well, why would I go through it? Why would I get an arborist to write something for me to hand it to the village planner who can't say no anyway? I'm just going to cut the tree down. And secondarily, shouldn't we be concerned of impact on the overall tree canopy, not just the canopy on the street-facing side? Many of our other restrictions or standards, although they may be different for the non-street-facing side, they're still there. We have standards that pertain to if you want to add a window or a door on the back of the house, you still got to come before us. So take it, if you all disagree, we'll take it up at a future work session. I think it is worth closing the loophole, and I put some draft language together. Anyone who wanted to respond to the specifics of the language, I'm happy to take that. And I don't know if we have 8 applications. I don't know that we want to contemplate a work session in advance of that next time, but possibly at the September meeting, we'll see what the workload is then. We will have a work session before then, and we'll take it up then.
John, I'm very supportive of your plan. To me, this phrase, the special character, is, everyone I've asked is unable to tell me what that character is. But I would guess that everybody would agree that pine trees is definitely part of the special character of Pinehurst. So
I would
allowing
include
a
other
big
trees, but
loophole
yes,
like
pine
that
trees.
needs to be fixed.
The other thing that I might weave into it, and this is almost separate, but it came up actually in the approval of the house that's being built right behind our house, is this concept, which is actually referenced in the National Park Service write-up, of thickets, those kind of unmanicured dividers, and they exist primarily in Old Town, not exclusively. But should we have language in there for new construction, that if you're building a new house, you ought to try and so far as possible to preserve thickets? Doesn't mean you can't take anything down, but you can't clear cut that either. Because I think that is fully, as you drive around Old Town in particular, and to an extent in Linden Road, less so in other parts, they're not everywhere, but I would call them borderline pervasive. And it is part of the special character. I happen to have them on both sides of my existing house. And fortunately, neither I nor neighbors have wanted to do much with that. So no one has proposed tearing it all out and putting in very nice plantings that might be fully consistent with our landscaping guidelines, but change the character of both properties. So we'll look forward to that.
I like the idea of a work session. I have issues with, well, there's issues with the live trees, and then there's issues with taking down dead and damaged trees. And I think we have to get a handle around understanding how, I don't want to discourage people from taking down a dead tree and making it minor work, and therefore they have to pay $100 to do it. And I think at the work session, we need to figure out, can we have something called major work, but because it doesn't involve actually architecture or building, it's just trees, can we have a discounted fee? Or I don't know, this could be a problem where, the computer system, Acela or whatever it's called, won't allow that. That if it's major work, it's always $500. If it's minor work,
I
it's
don't
always
think we
100.
get to set fees, period.
No, I know, but if we put it in a
Someone else.
category, the computer may require that fee. And I don't want to penalize people for taking down dead or diseased or damaged trees, because I think that should be done. So we can think about that at the work session.
Again, I think all of you got my proposed language on
Yeah.
trees. I'm happy to take input from each of you, suggestions, and then I will try to
Okay.
re-wordsmith it to something for whenever our next work session is.
Yes.
Hopefully September.
Yes, I saw what you did, which was good. There's some areas where you missed some things that got
No
dropped
pride of
off, but we'll
authorship.
put that
I'm sure
back
it can
in.
be improved on. I would be stunned if it couldn't, so.
Just on that, you made the comment, John, you probably didn't mean it that way, but it's not that staff can't do anything. We're the second line of defense. So on those trees, if it's something that rises to something that staff feels is inappropriate, or that we would have an issue with, it's gonna get kicked to us. So, coming back to Muster Branch, I mean, I think this is my fourth year final session, whatever, but we must have had 200 cases, and I can't think of a single one where someone's clear cut a lot in 4 years. So to say this is, a loophole and it's a backdoor and we need to fix it immediately in 200 cases, for me at least, I haven't seen someone take advantage of that. And I would say Muster Branch, you look at the entire canopy, yes, it's not ideal that someone comes and clears, but at the end of the day, he's surrounded by hundreds of acres of trees. So when you look at it, it's not as if it's a clear-cut 1 acre lot in the middle of the village and every tree is removed. So I think that's obviously good to continue to improve, but we've still got to strike this balance between
Absolutely.
Right.
not trying to regulate too much, because for the most part, I would say the last couple of months, things have been clicking along beautifully in here. And
I've reminded Eric of that these meetings have gone much shorter than when he was in charge, and
Well, and staff, I mean, I think staff, obviously, blow smoke up Maria again, but she's doing a great job.
Yay,
And
Maria.
Our staff, we have some consistency within that department, and, it's nice to hear folks compliment staff in front of us.
Yes.
applicants. So staff is doing their job. They're the first stop of defense. We're the second stop. I don't want to insert us into the first stop. So
No.
just as long as we find that balance.
I totally agree. And with the trees, I understand totally what you're saying. My concern is attrition with the trees, because if someone takes down 5 trees and it doesn't matter, it doesn't affect the canopy, and then someone else takes down 5 trees, and, we have no oversight over this. Eventually, those 5 trees become 50 trees, and then they become 55 trees. And eventually, and they can't be replaced. I mean, they take a long time to grow. So my concern is the attrition over time.
Say that about anything. We can say that by a 5'5" structure, then you build another 5'5" structure, but next another 5 foot. I mean, you can say about
Right,
anything in life.
but we have the wonderful Tufts cottages here because someone took the time to be a steward to them and keep them. And that's how I feel about the trees. We should think about that.
Are,
I don't think, you don't know all the people that come to staff already and talk to us about those things. 20 Muster Branch staff did go out because he did contact us about taking those trees down.
Right, and you got approval.
Follow the standards.
Right, absolutely. And that's why we're saying we feel like maybe we need to tweak those standards a
Rich,
little
I
bit.
think, I agree with you. I think we need some standards. Maybe it's in the minor, I'm not sure it should be major work, but if there are no standards, then there's nothing for staff to rely on. They can't lean on anything, so.
And this is good because we all have different opinions. I think that's great.
They're on a golf course.
Right.
All
Then
of
we
which
wanna
could have been
see it.
mitigating factors, but they didn't leave very many trees relative to what was there before. That's fine. If it's in the context of other work that we have to consider, that's fine. But any other new business? Our next regularly scheduled meeting, I believe, is August 24th. I think that is correct. Unless changed. People, I know I will be in Michigan, but I will be coming back for that, particularly in light of 8 applications. Do we think 8 is going to be it? Today's the last day?
Yes,
We're
there
done,
will be no
okay.
more.
Deadline is gone. We will not schedule a work session in advance of a meeting that might parallel a council meeting here, I don't know. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by David Herring, a second.
Oh, second.
Seconded by Kara Mathis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.